Good evening, councillors, staff, and any members of the public who are joining us online. I'll declare this agenda briefing open. Thank you all for joining us. Councillor Steele is on approved leave of absence, and I have received one declaration of interest from Councillor Andrew on item 10.2.1, which is around the Cemetery Board, as he's a board member of that board. It is impartial interest. Is there any other declaration of interest, councillors? All good, thank you. Minutes of the advisory committees. We do normally ask the chair. I haven't actually given you a chance there, Councillor Brown, just to give a summary of things happening in that committee, but there has been quite a busy little time for you, so I might just defer over to you, if that's okay, without notice, to just give an update on that meeting and any other things happening from that committee. Councillor Brown? Not in a briefing, we don't need to. In briefing sessions, you don't need to.
Yeah, so look, it's been our first International Relations Committee. I was elected the chair. It's been a busy time for us, especially around the Tokyo Talent Tour. We've had information nights on the 26th and the 28th of February, and we had the main information night last night. That was great. We had some speakers. The Mayor spoke of his time in Tokyo. Jackie Granger, she spoke of her time, and some of the city staff that will be attending. Interviews for that will take place in April, so there's a lot of excited kids and parents out there, so that's great. The meeting, what else did we do there? Our quarterly meetings, we interpose with monthly workshops, so because we've got a busy schedule coming up, and that's moving forward. We adopted the terms of reference, and overall, it's an energetic and very productive start to the year. So that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Moving on. We'll move on to the agenda itself and item 10.2.1. Thanks, Minutaker. Any questions on this one? Thank you. 10.3.1. All good, thank you. 10.3.2, I think there was a couple of questions on notice for this one, was it? Councillor Andrew?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just chasing update on PR 3830, the subdivision and sale of Lot 3 Blair Street, and also there was a second question on implement greening Bunbury plan, if we can have an estimate of the number of trees planted in the city in this financial year.
Sure. CEO update on Blair Street, on what we can develop, I guess.
Thank you, Mayor. So Blair Street, we had a meeting with the proponent and with the city staff a couple of weeks ago to work through some feedback in relation to the legal contract. So there's 4 or 5 issues that we're working through and have got close to resolution on that. So there's some changes to some clauses that will just need to be made. So our lawyers and the proponent's lawyers will work together, but pretty much got agreement on most of the issues that have been raised. So we hope that can be resolved shortly, and then we can then move forward with that project.
Thank you. And CEO, any idea a number of trees planted this financial year?
No.
Estimate?
Director of Infrastructure may be able to answer that.
Through Ms. Fair, not off the top of my head, but I can get that information for you. It's been we sort of the program starts now as we head into the winter months. So there would have been a little bit done early in the year, but obviously we've had a pretty dry summer, so there hasn't been a lot done over that period of time, although I do believe the CEO will be out planting trees with our staff in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm sure that'll add a considerable amount of trees to our number.
700 last year has been whispered to me, last financial year, but we'll get that estimate done for you, Councillor Andrew, and I do recognise you did send that in earlier today. Apologies, I didn't get to that question, but we'll have that on notice. Any other questions on item 10.3.2? Councillor Gassett?
Standard question. Page 141 in the red, our operating surplus ratio, and page 140, our ability to pay debts. One of the questions is, I know we don't require to have project funding in the long-term financial plan, but it would be nice to do so. For example, the art gallery or the pool. Why should we not put those in the long-term financial plan so we get a clear idea what's ahead of us and how it might impact on these ratios going forward?
Until there's a council decision to commit to any of those projects, Councillor Gassett, they wouldn't be part of the long-term financial plan. So you could put in there whatever you wanted if we were thinking about different things, but until there's a council decision to go forward with a particular project, it wouldn't be in the long-term financial plan. I'm just not, is there any further to add there, CEO?
The only thing I'd add, Mayor, thank you, is that as we discussed at a budget briefing probably a month ago, what I have said is that I'd prefer to put some of the work that we're doing on the long-term financial plan on hold while we're waiting on the long-term, the asset management plans that are being developed. So council has been briefed on 3 of the asset management plans, and I think there's another 6 that we will do over the next few months. So once we have those in and up to date, we can then look at updating the long-term financial plan. As we all know, as you get past the first 3 or 4 years, the assumptions become tricky, and as the Mayor's already pointed out, in terms of those longer-term projects, what we are clear is that they're not in the long-term financial plan until we get further with the planning around those and get some surety around the funding. Likewise, there's lots of revenue, future revenue that we think that we might have with some of the developments that we know that we're working hard with the economic development team and the planning team. So there's lots of inputs that need to go in to the long-term financial plan, and what I would prefer to do is to work on getting the economics right for our budget and some of those structural discussions that we've been talking about, and then some of the revenue opportunities and some of the efficiencies that we're also looking as part of our business. So we can put whatever's reasonable in the long-term financial plan now, but things are going to change as we get greater certainty around some of our revenue and some of the asset management side of our business. So that was the discussion that we had probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, Councillor Gassett. I'm not sure you were at that meeting, but that's where I sort of started to talk about some of the learnings from the City of Fremantle and the work that we're doing in trying to restructure some of the elements of our business.
Okay, so if we turn, speaking of a subsequent question,
Yes.
page 44, I know it's not this item, but it's relevant. Halfway down. So the council has endorsed to commit to building a new state-of-the-art, world-class, purpose-built art gallery. It goes on to request CEO to investigate the capacity for a long-term financial plan to reflect the commitment to fund 25%. So we effectively were saying we want to build it within 7 years. I'm trying to read whether we've actually committed to doing this or it's just an idea. And if we have committed, then we should be putting in the long-term financial plan. If we haven't, then yes, no.
And that's what the CEO to work through that, as you just indicated in that motion, was to endorse the capacity within that plan to do. So I think the CEO just outlined some of that. I think one of the other issues is if we're talking about some of that expenditure in the outer years long-term financial plan, it's very hard to budget that when we have no idea what kind of incomes there might be in terms of grants for building some of these capital projects as well. So that particular motion obviously indicated that there was the preference to have this done, yes, but then it did also indicate to get the CEO to investigate that capacity, which is, you just indicate will be some of the work it will be looking into. And when we adopt that budget and long-term financial plan in a few months' time, that's the work we can do into that. CEO?
So thank you, Mayor. I mean, the reality with a $45 million ARCO, or whatever that figure is, I mean, who knows whether that's 45 million or it's 90 million. We don't have that funding, and we don't have that capacity for the city to fund that. So that will, largely, hopefully, be driven by Commonwealth funding and state funding that will contribute to whatever that gallery cost becomes. But we've got, a significant amount of work to be done through the re-establishment of the working group and the Bragg Advisory Committee, and we're having discussions on that as we speak, and then, ultimately trying to turn this into a project. But right now we don't have a project. We've got, a council decision that, seeks for this to be further investigated, and that's the work that we need to continue to do.
One more.
One more, sure.
Related, where item 2, I'll just reread that, where requests CEO to investigate the capacity for the long-term financial plan to reflect a commitment to fund 25%. So is that commitment for council to fund it or someone else to fund it? And if it's not,
So Councillor Gass, I'll review that too. It requests the CEO to investigate.
Yeah.
So that's indicating exactly what it is. It is not committing council to budget for the 25%, and that's some of the work. And that's the next agenda item. Obviously, that's already a decision of council. So that is a decision of council, but it is to request the CEO to investigate the capacity. So that investigation might be, we have no capacity. It might be, under these terms, we have capacity through these measures. And that's the work that's currently being done, which will be incorporated into that.
thank you for the time being.
No problem, Councillor Kessler. Is there any other questions on item 10.3.2? Councillor Ramesh?
Just a couple of questions. The financial health indicators, with the last box it says we don't measure up or no.
The debts, yep.
Do we know what it was like in the last 10 years? So we can anticipate how it's going to be in the next 10 years. And the second question was the budgeted targets again. We are way below. How are we ranking the last 5 or 10 years? And then what's the plan? I know it's part of the LTFP, but I just want to check.
So a lot of these ratios are based on what the government have indicated where you should be. A lot of the ratios that we don't meet are very similar across the board, and there has been a bit of a push to revisit how those ratios are measured up, because there's a number of local governments in a similar boat. So you'd probably find that would be the same, but I might refer to the CEO if he's got any comments on all those particular ones and how we're working in that space.
That's correct, Mayor. And I think for those who are at the Audit and Risk Committee, this was discussed as an issue because, as you know, they don't get these ratios, aren't part of our the Auditor General's assessment anymore. In terms of getting some further information, I'm sure the Manager Finance can provide that, and we can take that question on notice. If you want some trend data for how that's performed over the last 10 years, I think we've got all that data. So unless the Manager of Finance wants to make another comment.
Another question, Councillor Ramesh?
The final question is, do we have any benchmarking sites, like how we do for the hospital finances, like a hospital round table, or do we know how we measure up with the other councils?
So all that data has been provided previously around those ratios and how we're comparing to other ratios, and not just obviously the 136 other councils, but like for like. So there has some work in, and perhaps we can get that circulated, or if you had some time to spend with the Manager of Finance, I'm sure he'd very happily walk you through it. It's a very important thing, and it probably be some work that will happen over the next coming months anyway through the budget workshops. I'd imagine that'll be some of the work that we'll be revisiting. It is a good indication to see where that's benchmarking against those. So yeah.
So the only other comment I'd make, Mayor, is that through RCA WA, we've also got some benchmarking across the regional capital cities. So that's the report for the last year has just been released. So we probably should share that because that has some probably more useful benchmarks around a whole lot of indicators that's quite useful.
Some of it is very difficult as well because some of our friends in other local governments have very successful airports or other industries that they're involved in, which is very good for them, but it's all part of the work. There is some good data there which we can certainly share. Any other questions on 10.3.2? Thank you. 10.3.3 is this advisory group, and this was the questions that Councillor Gassett was referring to in the council decision in the background below. But this particular item is obviously looking to bring that group back together, and a couple of things there. Any questions on this? I think this has been shared with those three elected members, I'm pretty sure. That
I'm just more interested in, on page 146, it's got the selection panel of the 3 elected members and Dr. Michael Bianco choosing the 2 industry experts and the 3 Aboriginal community members with our expertise. I was just wondering what sort of process they've got to go through for that selection panel, if possible, please.
I know the director, Strawn, had a lot to do with this, so I'm not sure if anyone might be able to take that. I'll see if the CEO can. If not, we might have to take it on notice.
So we're happy to take that on notice. Obviously, Karen's not here tonight, but she's been heavily involved in this. So happy to take on notice.
No, it's definitely from her directorate, so we can take that on. Thank you. Councillor Turner. Any other questions on this one? Councillor Gassett?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, thank you. So we're looking at, is it the current CEO to be the project manager, current gallery CEO to be project manager, and then we use a staff member to be the acting CEO. So is there any new funding required for that, or is that coming out of cost shifting, or how are we going to finance that?
CEO?
Thank you, and thank you for the question. So, effectively, Michael will be the project manager for this project. So we've negotiated with Michael with that, and we will promote someone within the gallery current staff, Anna, to be the team leader of the gallery. So Michael will still provide some curatorial support as part of his project management, but be heavily involved, obviously, in this project, which is we need his expertise. We will also put some project management support that we have inside my office to support Michael in some of the governance that's required around this project. So from a budget point of view, we've already been planning for the change in role from Michael to be a project manager, and already had provided some funds to do that. There's minimal impact in terms of additional cost as a result.
So can I ask, did we already allocate funding for this project management role?
So sorry, Mayor. So in our workforce plan, this had already been identified as something that council has made a decision on investigating the project manager role, and we made provision for that in our workforce plan and budget.
So there's no removing resources from tasks in this arrangement?
CEO?
No, Anna is currently almost been the team manager of the art gallery anyway. So in her role, she's probably been doing that with Michael's absence. Michael, as you're probably well aware, has been had some leave, and we've been talking to him for probably the last couple of months about the changing nature of his role and getting him into more of a project management consulting role for us. So providing that curatorial support, which is where Anna needs the support. She's not a curator, so that's where Michael will provide the curatorial and work on the project, the new art gallery project.
Further questions? Good. Thank you. Thank you for your questions. We have 10.5.1, a recommendation there. Questions? Councillor Turner?
Wasn't this the group that we were going to set up before, but it was voted against because we've already got the other environmental groups covering a lot of this stuff?
I think that one was really about weeds, that one. Was that one you're thinking of? No?
No, to
Different
do
group?
with environmental issues.
Yep, sure. I'm not sure if the CEO has an answer for that, but he might be able to defer it.
I think, thank you, Mayor, the Director of Infrastructure will be able to provide a response to that.
Thank you, through Mr Mayor. There's a previous resolution that hasn't been fulfilled on there. We have a group called Surge, which looks after our environmental areas and friends of groups. This particular group is looking at sustainability, climate change, etc. So this is looking to bring that group into fruition now that we have our sustainability strategy in place and we're in the process of working our action plan out. We see it's a great opportunity to actually start to get some of the community involved in helping us with those tasks as we move forward.
All good? Thank you. We do have a motion notice. They're happy to take any questions on this particular motion, which we'll obviously go through next week. Any questions? No, no problems. That does bring us to a close. Councillors, thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Enjoy your Easter. See you back here on Easter Tuesday.